Elden Ring Nightreign. I want to hear from you guys in chat. How many of you guys are going to be jumping into this? It launches in 2 days on the 30th. And my perspective has been, it's probably not for me. I'm going to try the final launch version because content, you know, maybe it's way better now than the beta that I played. I don't know. But in my opinion, it's just, I'm somebody that loved Elden Ring, and I feel like this game intentionally, you know, is trying to do something different and they're experimenting with it. But it really does feel to me like they stripped out all the things I personally loved about Elden Ring and replaced it with just live service multiplayer stuff that I'm just not that interested in. Some people will absolutely love it, but I don't think I'm the type of person to love it. Nonetheless, the reviews have dropped, and it actually is coming in on Metacritic lower than I would have thought. I was still thinking this was like low 80s, like a B-, just when you factor in like how many FromSoft fans there are. But it's actually coming in right now, as of the time of filming this, right around 78, like high 70s, which is, again, lower than I was expecting it to be. You can compare that to the last spin-off project, because people will be like, well, Luke, it's a spin-off project, so it's not going to do as well as like Elden Ring or, you know, a Bloodborne 2 or something. And that's fair. But their last spin-off project was Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon. And this did 86 on Metacritic. And so it's actually done a good bit less than that. And I did check, yeah, this is going to trigger people. AZ Shadows actually on Metacritic landed higher. Now, Metacritic does not indicate the quality of a game purely, but it gives you a good idea of what the general consensus is in terms of like at launch where we're at. And the general consensus seems to be that it's a little clumsy, it's clunky. And if you like the core components of it, you're gonna just love it. You're gonna eat it up. It's right up your alley. But there's little bitty things that just feel, I don't know, underdeveloped maybe. Like no crossplay, for example, which is kind of like a necessary thing nowadays, just not here. No two-player, no duos. You can only do solo or trios. They just didn't do duos. They said they're considering it for after launch, but they just didn't do that. There's a bunch of little things like that, but I want to see the full review. We're going to check out the IGN one, see what they had to say, and we'll see. We'll see what they have to say about the game.
Elden Ring Nightreign is a weird one. It takes the foundation of one of the best open world RPGs of a generation and turns it into not just a roguelite where death is even more of a big deal, but a 3-person co-op focused roguelite. And in many ways, that strange experimental concoction is a success. Under the right conditions,
Okay. I do think, you know, people have raised good points because they're like, well, Luke, part of the success of Elden Ring is it has allowed them to experiment with this stuff they wouldn't have otherwise done. Which, yes, you can view that as like Elden Ring was so successful that now they can be more experimental. I think another way of looking at that, a different angle, is that Elden Ring was so successful that now they can justify rolling the dice on these kind of smaller cash grab projects that use the Elden Ring name to capitalize on the branding, you know, awareness or the brand awareness of the IP. Because a lot of people, and I think that this is a component of it, a lot of people are going to buy this not realizing that it's like a 3-player co-op online game and a roguelike. Like I was just telling one of my close friends like 3 days ago, because he had seen like a trailer for this. He thought it was like another expansion for Elden Ring, because he's not terminally online like you and me. He just like saw a trailer pop up on his phone one day and he's like, oh, that looks cool. He didn't really process that it was, no, it's not like an expansion. It's not like Shadow of the Erdtree. This is a totally separate thing. And you know, that this is partially enabled because they were very successful with Elden Ring, so they can justify kind of rolling the dice more. But it's also, let's be real, it's trying to capitalize on the branding, which makes perfect sense.
Nightreign's 45-ish minute runs are positively thrilling. They are packed with surprising encounters, challenging decisions, satisfying opportunities for teamwork, and some of the best boss battles FromSoftware has ever come up with. And that's a very high bar. The big problem, however, is that those right conditions are far more difficult to create than they should be. You really need to have a consistent squad of similarly skilled players that are able to devote hours at a time in order to see what makes Nightreign special. And when you don't, the flaws of its design are magnified tenfold. There is excellence in this Elden Ring spin-off. but it's excellence that's just a little bit tarnished.
That was clever. I'll give you that. That was clever. Okay. That was clever. I like that, Mitchell Saltzman. That was good. That's clever. People ask you why we're watching the IGN one. We're watching the IGN video review because I don't typically like to step on the toes of other like individual content creators unless they specifically ask like, hey, Luke, can you react to my review or something? So I usually try to give them a little bit of breathing room. And IGN, love them or hate them, there's always something to talk about with an IGN video. I'll tell you what. Tell you what, there's always a little something, you know, to talk about. Tazmeister, thank you for the 5. I've heard it has bosses from other Souls games. Will they always be random each time you play? Or if you get the game late, would you miss a boss? I'm sure he'll talk about it, but basically there are different tiers of bosses. So there's sort of capstone bosses or end bosses that are the final challenge for the run. And those will be the same if you go on that run. If you choose that, you know, end boss, but within that run, getting to the end boss, there's all sorts of, you know, dynamic things where maybe you get invaded by this boss or this boss spawns over here. And so things can change within the run, but the final end cap boss is the same.
Let's get the most important caveat out of the way. If you are hoping to tackle Nightreign entirely solo, and are anything less than a hardcore Elden Ring player that actively seeks out ways to make that already difficult game even more challenging, Nightreign isn't for you. Yes, there is technically a single player option, but it's so poorly balanced that I would be honestly shocked if it isn't patched and adjusted within the first month of release. And this is coming from someone who lives and breathes these types of games. To understand why, we first need to go...
That's unfortunate, because we were hoping after the beta that they were going to do a lot of balancing and fixing with that stuff. So if it's still really broken, even for a hardcore Soulsborne player, that's unfortunate. Because then it's basically just trios. And I'm sorry, like even Apex, like the reason I liked Apex was actually because of the arena mode that I'm not actually sure if arenas are even still in Apex Legends, but I love the arena mode because you could largely go in solo if you're doing ranked and you could get with a good team that was capable. But in a game like this, like it's so much about team coordination. And it's so much about making sure the stuff you're picking within the roguelike mode synergizes with what other people are picking. You just have to have good communication. And that's one thing they're going to mention is that the in-game like communication systems are just not ready or not present at all. Yeah, but we'll get there.
Over what Nightreign even is.
It's back again? Oh, that's good to hear. I grinded the hell out of that arena mode back in the day, tell you what.
On a very basic level, this is a roguelite that takes place on an island called Limveld, which is kind of like a melting pot of Elden Ring's environments, enemies,
Shadow
bosses,
melting pot.
and structures. The general flow of a run is split up into a 3-day cycle. On days 1 and 2, it's all about farming gear, defeating bosses, and leveling up so that you're as prepared as possible when you face off against one of the 8 extremely difficult Nightlord bosses on day 3. It's a great formula.
So there's 8 bosses that are the capstone bosses at the end. Their goal is, as I understand it, to add more of those after launch, so they'll continue updating the game. They might even sell some of them, we just don't know. But whether, you know, it means a free update with 2 new, you know, end game bosses or capstone bosses, or if they do it where it's like, oh, you want the new boss? It's $10 to get that pass for that boss. We don't know precisely what they're doing. Maybe they have said, and I'm just not aware, in which case somebody please correct me. But my understanding is it's still kind of a question mark as to how they're going to handle all of that long-term
And while you
support.
might think that the mostly static map would get old after a while, there's a good amount of procedural generation on every run that mixes up the location of just about every point of interest, requiring you to plan out a unique route on each new attempt. On top of that, there are also random events like boss raids, summoning portals, and other wild occurrences that inject a heavy level of chaos every once in a while. Efficiency is key because you are on a very strict time limit, with a battle royale-esque circle that constricts at set points throughout the day, eventually shrinking to the size of a small battlefield and setting the stage for a boss battle that ends the night. It is immediately obvious that Nightreign was designed with a 3-player squad in mind. Enemy encampments that don't require you to fight a single boss will instead have you spread out to take down 3 tough enemies. Basic encounters against 5 or more enemies that would be trivial with 3 players become costly time wasters when you're on your own. and the new Night Lord bosses all seem explicitly designed with having allies in mind, and I'm not sure how I would even approach several of them by myself. Nightreign at least scales up your damage when you're alone, but it doesn't change any of these fundamental design decisions in any way that would make solo play more reasonable.
Because there are some boss fights where like you need to pull aggro with one player while the other player goes around smacks that booty. Or like if there's multiple, there's maybe two enemies, you pull aggro with one, then two players team up against the other. Maybe you could do it with duos, but there are no duos in the game right now. So like if it is in fact the case that it is primarily like almost completely trios, okay, but then I mean you just have to be realistic. And anybody who's like, well, I'm going to be playing it solo, I'm going to play it like I did Elden Ring, it's like it might not have that good of a time, because I've not played the final version of the game, I only played the beta. But the guy that is big into Elden Ring, big into Soulsborne games in general, he's saying that the single player playthroughs are not really viable.
But the biggest issue is that co-op partners are able to revive each other when someone goes down, but you've only got one life to live against bosses when you're out on your own.
Why not just give like a self revive? Maybe you get one, maybe two when you're going solo, and they're just like, yep, this is how we kind of balance it, so you at least get a couple chances, just like if you were downed by the boss and then your teammates res you or something. That would seemingly be, I would think, relatively easy to implement, but apparently not.
That's generally the case in roguelites, but usually there's some sort of safety net that you can fall back on. For example, Hades has Death Defiances, and part of the progression of that game allows you to work towards unlocking more of them with every run. Returnal has artifacts that you can find that give you extra lives, rewarding you for being more thorough in your exploration. Spelunky has shortcuts that allow you to skip the early stages to get practice on the enemies, traps, and bosses that you only have limited experience with. The list goes on, but Nightreign has virtually nothing to make up for the fact that solo players lose access to that crucial revival option. There is an item that will resurrect you once with half of your life, but it's limited to the highest rarity tier, meaning you have to choose it over a legendary weapon if one does appear as a reward. Similarly, you may find them in a shop, but they cost a substantial amount of runes that you could instead use to level up. Either way, it's just not a solution that makes up for the crippling detriment of not having someone to revive you if you go down.
And I mean, again, there's other ways that they could try to balance it, like making the bosses weaker, lower HP pools, or, you know, whatever they could do, increase your damage, whatever. But if it really is just the same exact game mode, everything's the same, except now you go in without teammates, then yeah, it's going to be broken as hell. Like it's just not going to work. You have to do some balancing. Even Monster Hunter games do this, where it's like, you know, you play solo, the boss has a certain amount of HP, you play in 2, 3, or 4 player mode, and the boss gets like triple the health or double the health. I'm thinking it depends on what difficulty the challenge is, but I mean, it balances at least for solo play versus multiplayer, whereas this, it seems like it just doesn't.
None of this is to say that solo play is outright impossible, and I have had a few successful runs on my own, just that the balancing of solo play feels like a job half finished, and as a result, the frustration of playing alone wasn't worth the triumph for me to have any desire to play it more without a squad.
Well, and it kind of furthers I have like this gut feeling with this game that this was a fun idea they had, and they're like, hey, we could do it as a free update to Elden Ring, or we could try to sell it as its own thing. And then the publishers were like, you should sell it as its own thing. And so they've kind of thrown it together. There's parts of it that are really, really like thought out carefully, like the procedural generation stuff. And then there's other parts that I feel like are much more rushed, as I think he'll get to with like the communication systems between players, with the balancing for solo play, where it's like, if it's that busted, why is there even solo play to begin with? And things like that, where you're like, did we just not finish it? Have we not thought this through? It kind of gives you that vibe.
Nightreign's saving grace is that when you do have a squad of 3 people who all know what they're doing, communicate well, and are generally pretty skilled at Elden Ring, it really is a lot of fun.
And yeah, I mean, I think playing it with friends would be significantly more fun than even what I did during the beta, which was playing with randoms. That's the tricky thing, though, is it's just, as he alluded to at the top of the review, this is the kind of game where like you need similar skill levels with your friends, and they need to sit down with you, just like with any other co-op game, and set aside 2, 3, 4 hours for a session, and you just need to grind it out. And that's it's just a big commitment for a lot of people. And of course, some games you can get that, whether you play Marvel Rivals together or you play, you know, with your friend group, maybe you do Warzone or Fortnite, whatever it may be. But that type of commitment is tricky. So I think a lot of people will play with randoms that they just load in with, which is why, again, having in-game communication systems, in-game voice chat, prox chat, whatever it is, can be really, really helpful. Anti-Gravity makes a good point. Thank you for the 5 and says, hey, Luke, love the content, big fan of Elden Ring 2. Why don't they have 2 NPCs or summons for solo players? What do you think? I mean, that would make a lot of sense to me, frankly. And we know they did the whole summon thing. They did literal mimics within Elden Ring, the core games. Maybe there's like a technical restriction or something. I don't know. But that would seemingly be the most obvious thing to do, is just have like NPCs that fight with you. There's a summoner class called Revenant. Well, what they're specifically saying is, like, instead of teammates, if you're going in solo, you just play with bots basically. And the bots are your teammates with the same amount of health, with the ability to revive you, with all of that, and they just take the place of other players. I guess you could do that, but I don't know. Uniform says NPC AI and pathing is not their strong suit. That would be, or would have been nice, but likely would have been a headache to get right. Well, and it brings up the other question, which is that there's other components of the game that seem kind of rushed, or like they didn't have as big of a budget as you would expect for a mainline FromSoft game. And so they just didn't have the time or budget or resources to do that. And so they just didn't. I'm not sure.
The central idea of taking an entire game's worth of progression and condensing it into a 40-minute run is a strong one. Going from cutting down rats with a basic weapon to culling Elden Ring's most fearsome bosses with a badass armament that you may or may not have gotten to use in the main game is one of the coolest and most satisfying parts. It's 80 plus hours of character growth condensed into less than an hour and shot straight into your veins.
And again, I can understand why some people would like that. For me, though, probably my favorite component of Elden Ring is the build crafting. I love coming up with like a cool way to mix and match different pieces of armor or talismans or weapons, whatever it may be, to build something that is particularly potent against a certain boss. I love that kind of thing. But in this game, like, it's very intentionally not that. And again, I can understand why people would love it this way or love it for being this way. But, you know, it's just not the same, man. How is this not considered an asset flip? Well, I mean, it literally is. They are taking assets and flipping it into a new game. I think asset flip tends to have a very derogatory, I guess, it feels very derogatory to just be like asset flip, where it implies that there's been no effort put in whatsoever. And I do think there has been effort put in here, at least in parts. I've seen people get really excited over the idea that you can fight like Nameless King or something, like, you know, other older Soulsborne bosses and stuff that they've copy and pasted into here. I've seen some people say they're really excited about that. I personally don't get that. I'm like, I was hoping for something new. You know, I don't get to spend old dollars on this game. They're asking for new dollars, real dollars. So just copy and pasting, I don't get why people are so willing to just hand wave that away. I'm like, that seems kind of lazy just because you really like that game. I liked Dark Souls 3 too. I did, but like I was hoping for new bosses, you know? Personally, I don't know, man. FromSoft is entering their BGS arc. I mean, if they get to the point where like Miyazaki is screwing up his big games, I could see that. You got to remember that like even BGS, they did some experimental stuff. Like, you remember when they announced the Fallout Shelter game back in 2015 with Fallout 4, and everybody's like, what the hell are they doing? They're a mobile game studio now. And I don't think it was that fair to freak out as much about that, because that was more of an experimental thing. It was just a different kind of thing that they wanted to try. And it was honestly pretty good. The game's still going to this day, a decade later. It's crazy, but yeah, Fallout Shelter still makes good money. But with this, I mean, I think it's just an indication of them being like, hey, we've got this big IP. Live service stuff makes good money. What if we just experiment with this? Well, let's try it. Let's try it. And there's been other speculation and stuff people have suggested maybe part of the way, because you remember From Software has been trying to self-publish and get free of Bandai Namco and buy the rights to their own publishing. And so some of the speculation has been that this game was made as a deal to get their own publishing rights moving forward. So it's kind of like a tit for tat. Okay, we get the publishing rights, but in exchange, we'll make you this live service game real quick. You know, there's been speculation something like that is happening. I don't know. Again, a lot of people will love this. I'm not sure for how long. A lot of people love it. I just, as I find out more and more and more, that 78 on Metacritic is making more sense.
Dropping into a run the first couple of times is certainly overwhelming, mostly because of the amount of information on the minimap you have to process, but at least FromSoft keeps the inventory and stat management very simple. Level ups are automatic, letting you press a button at a site of grace to automatically level your class's preferred stats. And as far as weapon stats go, all you have to worry about here is the damage number, the elemental affinity, the passive bonus you get simply for having the weapon in your inventory, and the weapon skill that comes along with it. This meant when I had a choice between 3 rewards, I was able to very quickly make a judgment on what I needed at that moment and continue on my way. Eventually I started to understand what rewards were offered at which camps, which ones were quick and could be cleared before the circle closed in, which ones I should do only if I had a lot of extra time, what level I should attempt certain roaming bosses, and which bosses I should absolutely avoid unless my team was really confident in our builds. Exploring these areas can be more frustrating than it needs to be, thanks to a new wall climbing ability that just feels straight up bad. Especially when it takes 3 attempts to jump over what looks like should be an easily scalable wall as you're trying to escape from the encroaching circle. But learning the...
It's one of those things that also feels a little bit rushed. Like, I'm guessing a developer threw this together and they were like, look, it kind of works. And they maybe played around with the idea of putting it in the base game, but then like, don't bother with it. It's not ready. And then they just decided to bring it over to this. Because even in the beta, again, I was hoping that they would have fixed it, but even in the beta, it was pretty clunky. And so it's apparently not been fixed.
The ins and outs of the map helped my efficiency and led to a very satisfying feeling of skill progression that wasn't tied to the actual progression system that offers persistent improvements between attempts. That system is tied to relics that can be won after completing a run. Whether you win or lose, you still get relics, but the better you perform, the better the quality and quantity of relics you earn. These can be equipped before a run and impart stat bonuses, starting skills or elemental affinities for your initial weapon, buffs for performing certain actions, and in some cases, they can even improve the skills of a specific class. When you're just starting out, these bonuses are hardly noticeable and too random to really make any sort of compelling build from, but eventually, with enough runs under your belt, you'll get some powerful relics that can really start to have an effect on your power level in a run. That said, there should really be more of an element of choice with regards to the meta progression, or at least a way to control some of the randomness. There are a small selection of relics that you can buy at the jar shop inside your base before runs, and there are set relic rewards for being Night Lord bosses and completing class-specific objectives called Remembrances, but other than that, you're completely at the mercy of the RNG gods when it comes to what relics you get. It can be really annoying when you're looking to strengthen your preferred class, and you keep getting relics that just don't do anything for you.
Feels like if you're playing as a given class, you should get relics for that class. Because I agree, it's really annoying when you're like playing a roguelike game and then you get a reward for like a weapon you're not using or something. And I understand the idea is like, oh, well, maybe now you'll use that weapon because you got this thing for it. And it's the same thing, like even we brought up Apex Legends earlier. You find like a gold attachment for a sniper rifle, but you're like, I'm not using a sniper rifle right now, but I have the gold attachment. So maybe I swap to it in order to use that attachment that I just got, you know, so it makes you think about it. So I don't know. I have to think about it more, but it can be very frustrating. Again, this is just one of those things where it's like, it's probably just not for me. Cause some of these things people are hearing, and I'm sure a lot of people are loving this. They're like, oh yes, thank God. Thank the gods of From Software that there's plenty to grind. And I respect it. If you like to grind like that, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool, man. But the more I hear about this, I'm like, I just want to play Elden Ring. You know, it's like, oh. Skadoosh.
One of the biggest departures compared to what we're used to from Elden Ring is that the classes are now actual classes, with unique skills and gameplay styles, as opposed to soft classes that just determine your starting stats and weapons. And the 8 options are varied and well defined, with even the most basic archetypes having some interesting twists to them. The Wilder, for instance, is the general jack of all trades, but also has access to a nifty grappling hook that can be used to pull weak enemies towards you, zip yourself towards larger enemies, or simply zoom you around the field at high speeds if you aim it on the ground. In addition to the basic fighter, mage, and ranger archetypes, you also have a few completely unique choices that don't fit into any pre-existing mold. One of the most interesting classes is the Executor, whose main skill has you pulling out a unique sword with a Sekiro-like parrying mechanic tied to it. Basically, by blocking attacks with proper timing, you completely negate damage, don't lose any stamina, and reduce the enemy's own stamina, potentially opening them up for a critical hit. It's a very risky class, especially in a game where missing a parry can mean almost certain death, and it feels like the offensive power of the Sekiro sword is a little too weak to justify the risk of the parries, but I appreciate this inclusion nonetheless as both a nod to Sekiro and a completely different way to approach combat. As mentioned, each of the classes has a remembrance tied to them, which is essentially a collection of journal entries that chronicle the story of how they wound up in Limveld and their purpose for being there. It's a far cry from the rich lore that we're used to in FromSoft games, but at least each of the remembrances has a handful of playable chapters that have you completing specific objectives in order to earn powerful relics, as well as a healthy amount of runes to help you level up during the actual run itself. Almost all of Nightreign is made up of existing Elden Ring parts, but there are a few surprise bosses that are pulled from the Dark Souls series as well. But the 8 Night Lords are brand new, and oh boy, they're almost all unlike any boss FromSoft has ever designed before.
Yeah, and I like the idea of these. I like the idea of something totally fresh and new, especially because, as I alluded to earlier, allegedly, some of these are crazy cool. The one... Did they have more than one? I think it was just one. I could be wrong about that. But the during the beta, the one they had was good. But this is the guy that's very, very interesting that I've not seen much on.
Many of them are clearly inspired by MMO boss battles, with a number of party-wiping attacks that must be stopped or interrupted before they get a chance to finish their preparation. Others are designed to split the party up into roles to either hold aggro or press the assault, and some are just designed to be all-out wars against absurdly aggressive foes. They're almost all bangers, with only one of them being a dud, due to the best strategy simply being hanging back and pelting them with arrows for what felt like an hour. Still, 7 out of 8 is still pretty great, especially when those 7 are among the best FromSoftware has ever created, with excellent accompanying soundtracks to match. I don't want to spoil them too much, but the fight against the Fisher and the Fog boss in particular is so good it gave me goosebumps all throughout. But the creativity of those bosses once again shines a light on the eldritch elephant in the room. They only really work as a team, and by far the 2 biggest issues facing Nightreign right now are 1. The shocking lack of crossplay, and 2. The absence of a duos playlist. If you play as a duo, you will be forced to fill the 3rd player with matchmaking. It is simply a lot to ask of a group of 3 people who all must have purchased the $40 game, play on the same platform, be of a similarly matched skill to be able to handle the extreme challenge of the day 3 bosses, have the time to devote 45 minutes per run, and also can agree on fighting the same boss that they may or may not need to beat for their own individual progression. There is a decent pinging system that at least makes it possible for light communication with a group of randos, but there's no built-in voice chat, which makes nuance like trying to communicate that your group should hit the basement of the castle instead of the front or side entrance virtually impossible. It's just a night and day difference when you're able to group up with a squad that communicates well and knows what they're doing versus when you've got one that doesn't listen to you or just constantly makes bad decisions, especially with no way to vote to cancel or quit out of a run without penalty. That makes
Yeah. I do wonder how they're matchmaking people, because if there could be like just something as simple as an account ranking. So if you've played a ton of the game, you get matched with other people who've played a ton of the game, or it might be just a total free for all. It was one of the interesting things we asked them about with Marathon, because Marathon also is almost entirely, about going in as trios. And it was like, so how do you matchmake people? Like, how do you make sure that if you're really experienced, you're not getting paired with noobs, or if you're a noob, maybe, you get helped by higher level players or something. And they didn't really have an answer. And I got the vibe that they might just be like freeballing it and just be like, yeah, we just throw people together, whatever. I was like, yeah, that seems like a bad idea. Seems like either way, I think there should be like games like Marvel Rivals, for example, have sort of a reputation system where you can upvote or downvote people, or upvote, I think just no downvote, but you can upvote people who are really good in the match, and then that makes them more likely to get matched. I think Overwatch does a similar thing, and so they're more likely to get matched with other players who have high rankings and high ratings and stuff. And so there could be a reputation system they could implement. Again, no in-game voice chat just seems like such an oversight, because it seems like such an obvious thing to do. Like, you matchmake with random people, you hop in a voice chat, and you can talk to each other. And maybe then if they play really well, you're like, hey, I'm gonna add you to my friends list, we can keep playing. And we'll use Discord or something. You can do that, but I don't know, man.
It's the prospect of random matchmaking on the live server.
It's not a conspiracy, it's a confirmed experiment. Miyazaki let the combat designer create a game with his ideas, which is fine, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be some of these basic quality of life things. Like, if you're gonna have a cooperative game, you kind of need a means to cooperate and talk and interact. Like, having a single ping system, I just don't think is enough. And it's like, it's fine to experiment with fresh ideas, but there are not experimental dollars. Again, like, it's real money that they're charging for this. And so if there's little basic things that you would expect to see in a co-op game that are just absent, it's weird.
Pretty unappealing. When Elden Ring Nightreign is played exactly as it was designed to be played, it's one of the finest examples of a 3-player co-op game around. The 8 character classes are each fun to use and feature a surprising amount of depth despite their limited movesets. The new Night Lord boss battles are among the best FromSoft has ever crafted and make the most of the 3-player dynamic, and the fast-paced racing and clock nature of each run leads to exciting moments of split-second decision-making and frantic rushes to try to finish up a fight before the circle closes in. But a lack of crossplay, duo matchmaking, and built-in communication tools makes it hard to create the conditions needed to have this kind of experience unless you're bringing 2 real-life friends on every run. And if you want to just play by yourself, I can't recommend it because of the poor solo mode balancing.
The nice thing is, almost everything he just listed should be fixable. Like, almost all of that. You can add, and fix solo queuing. You can add duos mode and rebalance the game accordingly. You can improve communication systems, whether that's adding an in-game chat or maybe just adding duos fixes that, because now if you only have 2 players, you can play together, and you don't need a random to fill. So, like, a lot of these things can be fixed and improved. It just doesn't sound like they'll be fixed and improved at launch. The no crossplay, my understanding is that is a much bigger deal, which is almost certainly why it's not in the game, because it involves crazy overhauls to network code, which is not something you can just, we'll patch it in. Like, it's a huge undertaking to add crossplay. So I'd be surprised if they ever brought that. I don't think they'll bring that, but
this amounts to an ambitious spin-off that's exhilarating when you're able to create the proper conditions, and one that quickly flips to incredibly frustrating when you're not.
Yeah. Dude, there's so much of this video left. Why is there so much left? They're just gonna do a chat session? That's weird. So anyway, I think okay, some of these comments are funny. Okay, the most difficult task for a Souls fan will be finding 2 friends. Boom, roasted. That's funny. Honestly stunned that there aren't summon options for solo play and crossplay for multiplayer. Yeah, it seems really bizarre. It must be like a server issue or like some tech issue, because it seems like such an obvious thing. Wait, no crossplay? Damn, that's disappointing at this age of games. Yeah, no duos, crossplay, and voice chat is unacceptable in this day and age, especially for a multiplayer-centric game. Yeah, you would think so, but they're saving all of their in-game chat for the Switch 2, for that weird Nintendo Discord ripoff. Because I'll bet you that when they release that game, I already forgot what it's called. Do you remember what it's called? Duskbloods? Is it Duskbloods? For that game, you better believe they're gonna have in-game like chat. But that in-game chat is gonna be part of the Nintendo Switch always online thing. You better believe it. This is Mitchell Saltzman, who reviewed Elden Ring originally and gave it a 10. He's also IGN's resident sweaty gamer. Definitely trust his opinion with this. Yeah, this is why, like, he's not, this is not a guy that's trying to hate. He's just saying, yeah, it's pretty busted, which should give you pause if the sweaty, like, Soulsborne fan is saying that it's a 7. For the average gamer, does that mean this is a 6? Like, what does that actually mean? No voice chat is just completely dumb decision in a game that really requires working together. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I agree. 7 out of 10 FromSoft game before GTA 6. If it's made for 3 people, I feel like maybe you should have gone the Dragon's Dogma route. For those who want to play solo, getting companions takes some aggro since enemies spawn 4 and have the aggression for 3. Maybe build your own team at the start or something. I agree. Like, just allow summons. The fact it's not there, it's got to be some technical restriction. A 4K review from IGN got to be an anomaly. Shout out Derek. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Someone said it. I knew it would be the lowest Soulsborne rating all along. Good for you. They gave it a 7. Yep. Not getting this game until they add duos. It's ridiculous oversight that they don't have it as an option. Yeah, it's weird. TLDR for everyone who doesn't want to watch the video. Basically, solo play bad due to balancing issues, but multiplayer very good and fun. Will be interesting to see how Duskblood shapes up in comparison. I mean, a lot of this, it feels like if they had more time and money, they could have expanded a lot of the feature sets. Like, they could have done plenty to add, like, in-game voice chat, to add duos, to balance single player. They could have done a lot of that. I get the vibe that they had a limited, like, budget, limited time, and so they just kind of threw this together with what they had. And the good thing about that is that hopefully they can fix it and get it where it needs to be. It may be a 78 today, or, you know, in 2 days when the game launches, but it may be an 85 or a 90 in 3 months or 6 months or something, once they've fixed that stuff and added stuff. It just means right now it's a 78, right? And hopefully in time it gets those things fixed. That assumes that they end up fixing it. The danger with live service stuff is that once you put something out, there is a real incentive on the part of publishers to pull funding if it doesn't immediately get a hook. And this might pop off. I mean, you never know. Maybe we see on Steam in 2 days that this has 500,000 concurrent players and it just blows everybody away. My gut is saying it's going to be less so, but who knows? I guess let me ask you guys this. In all the chats, I want to hear your prediction for peak day 1 player counts on Steam. What do you think? Because I mean, obviously it's not going to be like Elden Ring.
He
Elden Ring
donated
peaked at
$19.99 through Super Chat. This year's nominees for Game of the Year is getting pretty stacked.
Yeah, baby.
I really don't want the spots given to remakes or remasters again. It takes away spots from new games that never get a chance. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, V. Thank you for the 20 again. That very generous. That's crazy. But I agree. My general feeling is that there should be a remake remaster category, and you should treat them differently. That's just my perspective, because no matter what, a good chunk of the work was done years ago by the people who made the original. Like, I even love like Oblivion Remaster. I love Mafia Definitive Edition, which is a total remake. I mean, that is a remake of all remakes, where they had to redo everything. But the writing, the direction, the vibes, the art direction, all of that was done decades ago, you know? So I feel like it should just be its own category, in my opinion. That's just my perspective. Same thing with DLC.
Austin donated
expansions. I don't think they should be considered either.
$9.99 through Super Chat.
Thank you, Austin.
Luke, I didn't pop my cherry last night, but made sweet love to my wife.
Oh, good.
I just thought I would continue this trend. My God smile upon Luke, and may your ring be Elden.
May your ring be Elden too, my friend. Let's get solid. Thank you, my friend. And good for you. Good for you. Getting some exercise. That's great. Cody also gifted 5 memberships on YouTube. That's fantastic. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. Logan with a 5. Optimistic conspiracy theory. Nightreign is a test bed for FromSoftware so they can workshop new ideas. Also just watched season 1 and season 2 of The Last of Us. They were both awful. Season 1 I liked. Season 2 I don't know, man. I'm thoroughly confused at the mess that is season 2 of The Last of Us show. Thoroughly confused by it, frankly. I don't understand what's happening. The whole thing's stupid. Everything's stupid. Okay, so you guys are guesstimating right now. You guys are guesstimating 75k players, 69 giggity, 350 riding Elden Ring's wave. You guys really think it's in the hundreds of thousands? I'm not so sure it gets past. Like, I really, guys, I'm not sure if it breaks 100. Like, I'd be surprised. How many, do we know pre-order numbers? Is it really high? I mean, I very well could just be totally wrong. I genuinely don't know. Nobody in my inner circle of like friends and stuff are looking to buy Nightreign, especially after today. And usually I can kind of rely on that as a rough guesstimate. Anecdotal, grant you, but still. But like, Some people are guessing that it's going to have like 300,000. I don't think so, dude. It's number one on Steam. Well, in the last week of sales or like current filters, remove these filters. It might be really high on the wish list, but I don't know, man. Go buy Metaphor, by the way. Metaphor ReFantazio is on sale, 35% off. Go buy that. Space Marine 2 as well. Go buy that. Do it now. Stop giving me money. Go buy the game. I just hope Duskbloods ain't another version of this. I mean, I think it'll be way bigger budget. I think it'll be much larger scale, but it's going to be a co-op game. It's going to be always online. It's going to be co-op. It's going to run on a Switch, so it probably won't run too well. Yeah, and it will literally not have crossplay because it will be exclusive. To the Switch too. Maybe that's another question. Honestly, guys, I want to know, because we have some hardcore FromSoft fans in the chat. I've seen your messages. I know you're into it. And I appreciate you still being here, even as I complain about this. But I want to genuinely know, how many of you guys out there, Twitch, YouTube, all of you, how many of you guys are actually going to buy a Switch 2 for the next FromSoft game next year? Like, how many people are going to do that? There's a lot of hardcore FromSoft fans. But the one thing that they're also hardcore against, they do not like having their arm twisted into like going console exclusive. Like that, I just am not sure if that actually works. But, you know, if it ends up launching and it's like 10 out of 10s across the board, maybe then it's like a big console seller. But that's the thing, is it's also like console exclusive, and then it's also like a PvP game. And so I still am like, I think that there's a lot of reasons for FromSoft fans to shrug it off and just like, not for me. I considered it until Nintendo announced their prices. Well, yeah, because you better believe that's going to be an $80 game. And everybody's like, that game is going to require the Nintendo Online membership. And I bet you good money they're going to raise prices right before. So when you buy the console for the first time and you're about to play the new FromSoft game, you have to spend the extra money to get the Nintendo Online thing. And like, sorry guys, we had to take away the 1 month membership. It's only the 12 month or 6 month. You have to sign up for more than 1 month. They're going to do stuff like that because they can. Do you really think Nintendo will all of a sudden feel generous? No. No way in hell. They're going to feel real greedy. So I don't know, man. That whole thing, that's going to be a dumpster fire next year, I feel. I think we've largely put it off because it's like, it's in the future. We don't have to think about it right now. But I'll tell you what, that whole thing is going to be a mess. I'm like 90% sure it'll be a masterpiece. Probably. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be, for that type of game, a very good game, because that's, you know, Miyazaki knows what he's doing. But the question is just whether they can get people to buy a $500 console and then like another $50 to $80 online membership and an $80 copy of the game. Like, you're asking people to spend $650, $700 US, because you're probably also not playing that on Joy-Cons. You probably also want a Pro controller. Like, you might start approaching $700 for one game effectively. That's not great. I think a lot of people are going to be like, I'll wait till they port it to PC in a year, which they probably do, right? Like, I'd be surprised if it stays exclusive forever, but maybe it does. Just waiting for an extraction from software extraction game. I mean, that's kind of what Nightreign is. You like go into the matches, you fight the bosses, you extract with their stuff. I don't know, man. But yeah, I'm genuinely surprised that it ended up as low as it has. I really was expecting it to land higher. I'm a little surprised, but I think it really is, because if it clicks in trios with a party of your friends, you can have an amazing time, but you need your friends.
The problem with Duskbloods being the Switch 2 exclusive for FS fans is that the Switch doesn't have many other games that FromSoft fans typically enjoy. Meanwhile, PS or PC does.
That's totally fair. A lot of people who are FromSoft fans, they specifically play those types of games almost exclusively. I mean, they get really, really into them. And so I think that's a totally fair point. Like, maybe this is the start of that. Maybe they start getting more after that. But yeah, I think there's going to be, for some people, they'll play Nightreign and it will have them shouting for joy. But for others, I think they're gonna try it and it's gonna be just not for them. But the thing is, like, if you're not into the game after seeing these trailers and these reviews, I can't imagine somebody's like, yeah, let me put up whatever it is, $40 to try it. Like, I just don't see that happening. So yeah, $40 for pre-order. Technically releases tomorrow. I thought it said the 30th, but it might be the 30th in another time zone, like in the Japanese time zone. I don't freaking know. My time is all off. So at the very beginning of this video, I said 2 days away. That's not correct. Jacob put text on screen, I guess, when you edit it. It's actually tomorrow it launches in 1 day and 4 hours, which means it's kind of a weird time to launch, frankly, like early afternoon, but okay. He took my